This is Metamorphosis, an adventure platform where you play as a cockroach, trying to find a tower to turn yourself back into a human. This releases October 10th, 2024 for the MetaQuest 2, 3, and 3S headsets for $20 US, and for this review, we checked the game out on the Quest 3. There's platforming, puzzles, and a fair bit of bizarre adventure, but a few issues might hamper the fun here. So let's get to it, shall we? Hello folks, Ryan for the VR Grid here, and before we get to it, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to stay up to date on our content, leave a comment with your thoughts on this video, and if you can't get enough VR, join us live Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for the Virtual Boys podcast, where we talk all things virtual reality. Now on that note, let's get to the review. So when I first saw the trailer for Metamorphosis VR, I was pretty stoked as it looked right up my alley. I love games that utilize scale in unique ways, and playing as a cockroach sounded pretty damn fun. You play as Gregor, a man who wakes up hungover and finds out he's a cockroach. You must get to the mysterious tower to fix your current predicament, but as it turns out, a friend of yours is in a legal bind, and only you can get him out of it. It's a weird tale inspired by the Franz Kafka novella of the same name, and is rife with some pretty dry humor and surreal moments, but unfortunately, the version we're getting on release day has some issues. Now, in theory, playing as a bug is fun, and moving around the various environments, be it shelves, dressers, underneath floorboards, or wherever, is entertaining and potentially fun, but the platforming elements here really get in the way. You can use standard first-person controls to get around the environment, thumbsticks to move around, and using the A button to jump, but the game does allow you to move your hands to kind of crawl around, which works, but I kind of found it to be too fast, and it just got old really quickly to be moving my hands constantly while just trying to walk around. You can turn by angling the controllers, but if you want to just use thumbsticks, it's snap turn only, which sucks also. So for most of my play, I ended up playing in a swivel chair and just spun around on the spot, which was the easiest way to play. Now, the core game mechanic in here really is the platforming and just trying to get around this surprisingly huge human world. As I wrote, you'll be climbing pencils and books and clocks and papers and just about anything that a bug can climb on. And while walking and hopping can get you most places, occasionally you'll have to climb. And in those areas, you'll find some honey nearby that lets you get your mandibles all sticky, and then you can climb. The climbing works okay, with you basically just holding down both grip and trigger button and climbing as you would in most other VR games. With the controls here working mostly okay, but the jumping is so floaty, I found myself constantly missing jumps and forcing myself to climb through sections again just to miss the same jump again, or fall through cracks or geometry or whatever to make this a very frustrating experience, especially in some levels with open floors that just ask you to fall into them. It's usually not too hard to figure out where to go, but there aren't any real markers to tell you where to go other than just kind of realizing if you see a pencil angled upwards, you're probably supposed to climb that and go up. Though Gregor will talk to himself and occasionally tell you where to go or what to do, and you'll meet tons of other bugs along the way who will also guide Gregor on his little quest. When it works, it's fun, but when it doesn't, and I'm fighting the controls, it can be quite frustrating. Interacting with the environment can be fairly unintuitive, as it's not always clear what you're supposed to grab or touch, and when you are touching what you're supposed to, you have to kind of like hold down the grip button and then wiggle your hands in the air to kind of grab at levers and dials and things. It's awkward. Once you kind of do it once or twice, you do figure out what the game is asking you to do, but it never felt natural. Even halfway through the game, it still felt weird and awkward. It works, but it never felt right. So hopefully the developers can fix this a bit and make it a little more natural feeling. Controls aside, Metamorphosis is not a pretty game on the Quest 3. Hitman 3 got dragged through the mud for its pop-in, and Metamorphosis isn't any better. There are moments in this game where I was actually impressed by the overall scale and the fact that everything is being rendered in 3D, as the scope of these stages is quite massive. The problem is the pop-in is rampant and crazy. Not only does it happen at things in the distance, but it can occur like directly at your feet as your floor changes around you, the walls shift and change. It's distracting to a point of annoyance. And there are moments too where like entire sections of a stage will just disappear before your eyes. Take a step forward, they'll reappear. It just feels very unoptimized, which is unfortunate as the visual style here isn't great to begin with. It does feel like this has been scaled back from the flat version of this game. And I hate to say it looks questy, but it does, which wouldn't be bad. But in combination with that crazy pop-in and all the visual jank happening, the game can look quite messy at times and quite unappealing. The saving grace of Metamorphosis is the storyline, which is quite funny. It's a really dry humor. Like I said, this is inspired by Franz Kafka's work. Not that I'm overly familiar, but I enjoyed the humor at play. There are entire conversations happening around you as people talk about their current situations, and if you pay attention to what they're talking about, it can be funny. Now, if you spend too long in some levels, the dialogue will repeat over and over again, which can get quite tedious, and there were more than a few times where I was stuck, where I didn't know where to go or what the game was really asking me to do, where I felt like I was guessing, but these occurred more in the earlier parts of the game than the later, as once I figured out kind of the overall game structure, it became easier to figure out where to go and what to do, or at least what to look for. And I will come back to that scale thing, as the game isn't always pretty, but there were many moments in here where I was quite impressed at just how much was on display, or how far I could see, or even some of the texture details. I mean, character models don't look great. It's not like a AAA quality game by any stretch. Lighting effects are damn near absent. NPCs can animate kind of poorly at best, and assuming the developers can optimize this a little bit more, but there are limits to the Quest 3. I would love to see this on the PSVR 2 or Steam, just to see what this game could look like without being stuck to the standalone platform. And that's not a knock on the Quest, it's more a knock on the devs, as I feel they have something great here, just maybe overestimated the power of the headset, or maybe their own abilities, I'm not quite sure. Bottom line here, though, is despite some of the stuff I did like, overall, the visuals here are going to leave you feel wanting and kind of make you feel like this game should have maybe stayed in development a little while longer, but here we are. Audio-wise, it's a mixed bag, as some of the performances are okay, but many kind of feel off or amateurish and hurt the overall narrative, and I found myself skipping through a lot of NPC conversations just because their voices were annoying. Your character, despite all the things he's enduring, is pretty deadpan as well, which I kind of thought was a bit of an odd choice. And there's more than a few audio glitches as well, where characters won't speak or dialogue is missed, or music stops, or just sound effects aren't there. It's kind of all over the map. Some of these issues were supposed to be addressed pre-launch, but as of this review, they still popped up frequently enough where they interfered with the overall enjoyment of the game, once again making me feel like this should have stayed in development for a little while longer.
No, I'm human. No, I'm a salesman.
Show me your documents.
I don't have them. As I said, I was...
So you have no valid identification?
No, sir.
How do you expect anyone to believe you? Go see Karen. He will sort it out.
At the end of the day, I'm on the fence about recommending Metamorphosis VR for people in its current state. There's fun to be had here, and it's definitely fun to cruise around as a cockroach in these Honey I Shrunk the Kid type levels, but the overall jank factor here really hurt my experience with the game. In talking with the developers, they do seem committed to trying to fix as many issues as possible, which is great, but as it stands today, this is kind of one of those buyer beware purchases, as while the game isn't bad, there's enough jank and frustration here to make you think it might be. With a 6 to 8 hour campaign, multiple endings, and a fair bit of humor, there is lots to like here, but there's just as much to dislike, which is why I'm giving Metamorphosis VR a 5 out of 10. I'm really hoping they fix the Quest version, or release it for a more powerful platform, like I think it probably deserves. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to do all the YouTube things to help us out, and that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching.